Hello and welcome to this episode of the Curiosity Key podcast where I'm joined by Susanna Lawson. Susanna, welcome and thank you so much for joining me.
No problem, it's an absolute pleasure.
So before we start, can you just introduce yourself? Because I think, there's so many different things that we can talk about on this episode. But first, tell us about yourself and your business.
Okay, so I'm Susanna Lawson. I'm CEO and co-founder of OneFile Limited. We're a Manchester-based company and our sector is primarily post-16 vocational training, so apprenticeships. So we've got a SaaS-based business, cloud-based platform that delivers, it supports our customers to deliver apprenticeships. So our customer base tends to be further education colleges, universities, private training providers and employers that have their own vocational training sectors.
Fantastic. And you've grown this company from 2 people in a spare bedroom to, I think, you've got 85 staff
Around
at the moment?
Yeah.
And how long has it taken you to do that?
It's been 15 years. So we launched 15 years ago, put our first learners on 15 years ago. So yeah, it's been an absolute journey from where we are now. So yeah, as you said, we launched from our back bedroom in Burnage in Manchester, all from an idea. I was basically working as an apprenticeship assessor. I was working in nursing homes and going and training learners and carers in nursing homes. And I used to have to set off from my home in Burnage, and I would go long distances, travelling up to 3 hours to a nursing home in Shropshire, and I'd arrive and they'd sort of say, "Oh, I forgot you were coming today. I didn't bring my portfolio in." And I'd be like, "Well, I've just driven 3 hours to come and see you. I've got a 3-hour drive home and I can't continue any of your work." So I started having a bit of an inkling that I could use technology to solve that problem and make the delivery of apprenticeships and vocational training more cost effective and make me more productive as an employee, and also make report writing easier because I'd be able to click a button using technology and the report would just appear. And yeah, so it just had this idea about how technology could solve that problem, but that, then, work takes over and it sort of comes and goes, the thought comes and goes, until finally I had a chance conversation with my boyfriend, now husband. He was designing websites and databases from our back bedroom, and we had a bit of a chance conversation, and he said, "Well, I can build that." I was like, "Oh, can you?" So we had a bit of a light bulb moment, and stupidly, or I'm not sure what you'd call it, we decided to give it a go. So it's been, an absolutely fascinating 15 years. It definitely has.
Amazing. So before then, had you had any experience of developing technology or bringing technology to market or anything like that?
100% not. No. I would never in a million years have thought that I would be a CEO or a founder of a tech company. That was, I was working in care. That was my background. I was a carer. I also worked with adults with learning disabilities. And yeah, I never ever dreamt of owning my own business or founding any kind of company. But I just there was sort of an itch that needed to be scratched. I could see there was a problem and I couldn't see a solution on the market for it. And, I sort of talk about this on the network of technology founders and startups in Manchester. You don't have to be a techie to be a tech founder, because I'm not. I had an idea and then I found somebody that could build that for me, and that happened to be my partner. But, you could get investment, you could find a friend, there's lots of different ways to bring a tech solution to market. It doesn't have to be you as the developer. Somebody needs the idea.
And do you think it was easier or harder, the fact that your developer was your husband?
Well, I think at the time it was a lot easier. It was because obviously you're just together all the time, so you're just talking about it constantly and bouncing ideas off each other. So and I think it helped because we weren't both techies. We weren't both developers. We had complementary skills. I think if we'd both been the developer, it would have been a problem. If we'd both been the person with the idea, it would have been a problem. But I think it just, because we had complementary skills and motivations, I think that just, that's what made it fly, really.
Oh, there's a great tip and a great piece of advice there for anybody thinking of taking their idea and turning it into a tech product, is to make sure that you do have those diverse experiences and bring together complementary skills rather than try and find somebody to work with that matches your skill set.
Absolutely.
So that's fantastic. And if you could go back 15 years, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to yourself?
I think right at the beginning, I mean, we literally didn't leave the house for a couple of years, apart from when I would go out and do the odd bit of sales that came in the first couple of years. I didn't get involved in any networking at all at the beginning. And to be honest, it was only, I mean, I networked obviously in the sector that we're in, the apprenticeship sector and the training sector, but I didn't network with any founders or startups or sort of anybody from that side of things. And it was only when we moved out of the back bedroom and we found our first office, and that was after 2 years, and we were actually in an incubator that was run by Manchester University. And so then we were around other small startup businesses that we could sort of bounce ideas off other people. And then after that, I didn't even then get involved with the tech scene, for example, in Manchester, which is huge and so supportive. I mean, we were in that office for 10 years, and it was on the outside. It was between Oldham and Manchester. So it was about 3 miles out of Manchester, and it just felt like a lifetime away from Manchester, even though it was only 3 miles. So I never went into town. I never joined any sort of the networking events. It was only when we moved into Manchester just over 2 years ago, into the city centre, that I started learning about all these networks and going out and joining them. And it was really then that obviously to be around other founders and be around other people that are experiencing what you've experienced and understand what you're going through, it's just invaluable. So, you know, what I wish I'd had it sooner was the contact of other founders and startups that you can talk to, because you can speak to your family and friends, but they don't fully understand, if they don't own their own business, what it's like and the sacrifices you have to make. And luckily I did have Chris, and again that was useful, because again we could bounce it off each other because we're all going through it together. But obviously it would always have been good to have somebody external to the company who was going through it. And one thing that I have learned over all these years is business is business, no matter what business you're in. So obviously I'm in a tech company, but you know, I've spoken to people that own a chain of pharmacies or a chain of nurseries or pizza oven, you know, resellers. The issues that you have are often the same, whether that's people, whether that's finance, you know, cash flow, whatever that is. It's the same kind of issues. So you can share that, and sometimes somebody from outside your own sector can see it from a different point of view from you, definitely.
Oh, I'm so glad that you said that, because I'm a huge advocate of promoting diverse thinking. You know, I've come from sectors that I used to work in the mining industry, surveying, shipping, and commonly if you go to any networking event, it's always just talking about that same sector. And I found that one of the things that I've loved doing is bringing those experiences in from different sectors, because it's really helped me and sort of open up loads of other opportunities as well. So I'm so glad that you said that, and you can speak fondly of your positive experiences of doing that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's amazing. So what I wanted to talk as well is because you've won some pretty spectacular awards over the years, especially the Queen's Award for Innovation, which was always something that I had my sights on back when I used to work for innovation companies. What made you want to go for an award like that, and also what benefits has that brought to your company?
I mean, the Queen's Award is, you know, the biggest award really I feel that you can win in the UK. What I loved about that award was that if you're a worthy winner, you win it. So one year in the innovation category, there might be, I mean, I'm making this up, there might be 5 winners, or there might be 200 winners. So if the people that are applying are worthy enough by the people that are looking through the nomination. So you go through the first round, and then it's the Prime Minister's advisors look through it, and then it looks at the Prime Minister, and then it goes to the Queen. So it's not just at the end of the night, you know, at other award ceremonies, which are also fantastic, where there's only one winner and maybe a highly commended if you're lucky. It's if you're worthy, you will win it. And I think that's a great opportunity there. We did actually go for it before and we didn't get it, and looking back, we weren't worthy of the time. We weren't ready. We weren't able to demonstrate the impacts and, you know, the difference that our product had made at that point. So it was absolutely right we didn't win it at that point. And I was quite glad in a way that we didn't win it the first time round, because obviously, you know, it's disappointing. But then when we did win it the second time round, it was all the more, felt like we'd earned it a lot more. What it's brought to the business, I think, is a lot of kudos. I think when you win a Queen's Award, anybody in business does understand what the Queen's Award is about, and that it is that at that high level. And it did coincide with us moving into the city centre. So like I said, we'd run OneFile for about 12 years outside of the city centre, from Burnage, back bedroom, and then sort of an office on the outskirts of Manchester. And we'd grown from sort of 2 to sort of 70, 80, and we moved into the city centre and nobody even knew who we were. And we've been in Manchester all this time, but we'd also said that we didn't want to, because within the first year of winning the award, you then get your presentation from the Lord Lieutenant, and then so we wanted to wait until we were in our new offices to make it even more of a celebration to moving into the city centre for all of our team. So it just coincided. So obviously we got some great PR for having that presentation as well. And I think a lot of people in Manchester sort of looked up and went, who's this company? Who are they? We've never even heard of them. And here they are, 80 people in the city centre with a Queen's Award for Innovation. How on earth have we not heard of them before? And I have actually asked a few people over, in the last couple of months, why do you think we went under the radar? Because we were there, and because we're bootstrapped, we funded the business 100% ourselves. We've never taken investment. And they said normally when somebody takes investment, they pop up above the parapet, and everyone starts, oh, who are these people? Because they're doing the rounds, etc., etc. But because we'd never done that, we just flew completely under the radar, and nobody knew until that point. So at that point, we did start getting quite a lot of PR, sort of being invited to speak on, magazines. And then I think it gave us the kudos. People sort of realised we were a proper grown-up business.
I love it. It's amazing how many people say that. It's like, oh, at this point, I finally realised that we were a proper grown-up business. Yeah. And it's different for every single person, but always a lot later than probably they should realise it. So I love that. And just out of interest, because we've had lots of guests on this podcast that some talk about self-funding the business and growing it organically, and then other people talk about going for investment from an early stage. What made you want to go and just do it all yourself?
Probably fear.
Okay.
Lack of education. I think because we weren't part of that tech network, and we didn't know any tech entrepreneurs, and we just probably naive. We probably didn't know. And then as we grew, as we were making the cash ourselves, we realized we didn't need to get an investor to fund the next sort of growth stage ourselves. So it was probably just naivety. And like I say, lack of education. Looking back, I don't know if I had known, if we knew now what we knew then, would we have taken investment and got there quicker? Or I have absolutely not, we have no idea now, but it is what it is. And we have just funded it ourselves. So, it's fascinating. I love listening to other businesses now that have raised funding. And I just think it's, to me, it's a whole new world. I think it's fascinating, and especially at the startup phase when they're able to raise that investment so early without necessarily having a product even. I just think it's amazing. And yeah, I've no idea if we knew now whether we would have done it or not. I don't know.
So that's an interesting question. So at what point in the business did you feel like you weren't a startup anymore?
Oh, goodness. When was that? When would that have been? I think, I don't know, because sometimes I still feel like we are a grown-up business. I think one of the biggest things we got accepted in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. And I think that was the first time we sort of had external validation by a company like that. So, and it was to support a company that they could see had scale up potential. And I think it was the fact, so when would that have been? That would have been about 9 years ago. I suddenly thought, goodness, somebody else external from us thinks we can do this. And again, if we'd taken investment, that would have equally probably validated that at some point as well. But for a company like that to have interviews and know that they saw something in us that's that was worthy of taking on this program, yeah, I think that was a pretty special moment. But I still also, I mean, we've talked about it quite recently in the business, obviously with COVID and the lockdown, the way that we've coped with the transition from the office to all home working very rapidly. It made us realise we were more mature and more established than we realised, and ready to do that, because obviously we'd never experienced anything, as most companies haven't, having to get 100% of the staff working from home within a matter of hours, really, or days. It made us realise we were actually in a much stronger position than maybe we'd realised we were. And as a board, we've sort of sat down and gone, goodness, yeah, we are a grown-up business now. We could cope with that with minimal disturbance to the business and to the employees. So yeah, it's been a fascinating time.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. So yeah, that's brilliant. And the Goldman Sachs, was that something that came to you, or was that something that you went after?
So again, in the incubator that we were in, there was a larger company that was working there, and they did leadership and business coaching and sort of sales training and things like that. And one of the guys on there, he was one of the interviewers for the panel, and he'd actually approached me. I'd not heard, again, because we didn't go out networking. Nobody else would have come to us because they didn't know we existed, and I would never have gone looking for such a program. And he came and said, oh, there's this program. I think I was in the second or third cohort in Manchester. And he said, oh, they're going to be, they're looking for people to apply, and also, they want to encourage more women founders to apply because it's mainly quite male heavy. So he said, I really think OneFile would be in a brilliant position to apply for this. And so that's how we found out about it. But I mean, now, goodness, there's been over 1,000 businesses that have been on the program, and during this time they've actually put together like an emergency COVID-19 reimagining business program, 4-week program for the alumni, that everybody from the alumni could attend. And I think there's been over 400 companies that have been on the program in the last few weeks, which has just been phenomenal. And again, you're meeting a different network again, and under different circumstances, because obviously now a lot of these businesses are now in survival mode. They're not sure how they're going to make it through. So it's been fantastic to sort of revisit some of the principles that you get taught in a business program such as that.
Oh, brilliant. That's great advice too, because I think you're always learning those principles and refining them and understanding what you can leverage and what you have to prioritize, and getting that external input is so valuable.
Absolutely.
And have you noticed a difference now, so you set up the business 15 years ago, have you noticed more women founded, female founded businesses coming through?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm part of that network. So yeah, obviously I never realized that being, when we started again, probably up to the last few years till I started networking, I didn't really sort of realize it was a thing, being a female founder, a female tech founder. I hadn't sort of appreciated that was sort of seen as something that was rarer. But yeah, so, we do I do quite a lot of talking again on the sort of the diversity space, and sort of encouraging women into STEM, working with sort of female tech founders networks, etc. So I probably don't see it as much, because obviously I'm surrounded by people who are promoting that kind of space. But yeah, I mean, there is a huge issue of diversity in tech, not just in gender, but sort of in all areas. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. My mother's actually Chinese, so my mother's maiden name is Ng. And sometimes I have to put in, for security, I'm telling everyone, letter mother's maiden name, and it'll flash up that it must be the surname must be a minimum of 3 characters. And it's like, well, is a really popular Chinese surname, so I'm sure you're not being racist, but because you don't have a diverse tech or testing team, you're just not picking up on that. So there's a huge argument about diversity, obviously in any area of life, but it's a huge thing for me about having a diverse team at work. especially in the dev team as well. Looking at that, and it can be a real struggle looking for sort of female developers, having that diverse team. And it is, it's got to start at school, going back to the school. So I do a lot of work with, for example, Levenshulme High School for girls. They're based right opposite where the estate was where we started OneFile. So I've got a bit of affinity because the school was on the same estate, and so we take girls from the school for work experience a couple of times a year, and I say to them, what do you think it's going to be like working in a tech company? What if you said to your teachers, what job can I do in a tech company? What would they say? They said, oh, you'd have to be a developer. And I say, afterwards at the end of the week, I said, what have you learned now? Well, you've got sales, you've got HR, you've got finance, you've got customer delivery, you've got call center, you've got graphic designers, you've got testers. Every job, just because it's a tech company, you still need a diverse, set of skills and abilities within the tech company. It's not just developing.
Yeah, and I love this subject, and I think a lot of it, I always fall out with a few people because I don't like exclusive women's only events, because I think that's kind of defeating the whole point of diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
And I've learned that, especially because I had a baby 9 months ago, or depending on when you're listening to this podcast, but it's all mum driven, and like my partner is just as active in sort of our child's sort of upbringing and care and everything else. He's just like, hang on a minute, everything is geared towards women. What about the dads that want to stay at home, and what about the dads that want to care for the baby? And there's nothing aimed at them, because there's no diverse thinking at the top, or it's the complete opposite way around. So yeah, you it just need to be diverse, and you do need to have different perspectives and different experiences and things like that.
Absolutely. And and it's bizarre as well, because nobody means it's sort of like the subconscious stuff as well. So I'm away from home, normally, not obviously at the moment, but with work quite a lot at different conferences and exhibitions, and people will say to you, even women, so who's got the kids? And I'm like, well, the dad. Who, if it was him that was out, nobody would say to him, who's got the kids? It would just be presumed it would be me back home. But I was like, well, who do you think's got them?
I was like, left them at home on their own.
Yeah, exactly, they're fine. And it's just sort of that subconscious, they're not consciously saying it, it's just something to say, but it wouldn't be something to say to a man. It's something to say to a woman to sort of break the ice. And I think we're a long way from getting away from that, really.
Yeah, so we're battling against centuries worth of conditioning though, aren't we, really? So it's like, it's not going to be an overnight fix. But it's a challenge. But I think it's lovely to see what you're doing, especially in the women in tech space, and helping teach, like go into schools and inspire more girls. Because I know that I went into engineering from school, but I went to a girls' school. Like literally, if you're listening to this, don't send your child to a girls' school. But yeah, I was the only girl that went into an engineering or sort of STEM related field. And I think when I was at uni, I was like one of less than 10 people in my class, and it was ridiculous.
But again, it goes back to those, I think, the careers advice at school as well. I was at a conference a while ago, and Coca-Cola were there, and they'd actually brought 3 of their female engineers along to the conference to speak, and they were all late teens, early 20s. And when people asked them about their experience of getting into engineering, every single one of them at school had been told that's for boys. And we're not talking decades ago. They're only late teens, early 20s themselves. And the prejudice that if the schools aren't promoting STEM to the girls, and there was I saw on Twitter a while ago, there was a mum who was upset because her daughter had put down, it was a careers advice session at school. The girl, I think, had put down to go to either a computing or an engineering careers talk. And when she got there, one of the teachers said, oh, I've taken your name off there, I've put you on childcare. So what? Why on earth is this happening in this day and age?
Wow.
And how can we get the teachers? I mean, obviously it's not all teachers at all, but it obviously still happens. And also, how do we get the confidence in the girls? Because a lot of the girls, when I've spoken to the girls, or the teenage girls, they want to go and do what their friends want to do. So they may want to go and do engineering or computing, but if their friends are going into another sector, then they want to be with their mates. They want to have a good time, don't they? They want to have a bit of fun. So they tend, so it's how can we give them the confidence to understand you can still hang around with your mates, but you could do your course in another course and come back and see them sort of later on. So it's a tricky time, isn't it? Obviously teenage years.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't go back if somebody paid me a lot of money.
Not now, not with social media. Good grief, I'm glad I missed all that when I was a teenager.
Oh, I know, tell me about it. I mean, like, it's really annoying because I get categorized in the millennial field and everybody presumes that I grew up with, social media all the time. I mean, yeah, I grew up with like MSN Messenger and things like that, but as soon as you turned it off, then it was off, and that was about as advanced as you got. But yeah,
I was talking with somebody the other day about like the first mobile phones and how you had to pay 10p for a text message. She'd work out how many text messages, you're really frugal with the amount of text she sends.
Yeah, you wouldn't be sending emojis just as like,
No,
that one like thumbs up. You'd be like, oh no, I can't send that. I've got to fit as many characters as possible to, get my 10p's worth. But yeah, I know it's crazy. I mean, like, engineering is hard though, because I know that I had a few friends that studied, sort of psychology, or they studied English, or some of the more like creative things, and it's like, I was there like 42 hours of labs and lectures and things like that, and they're like, all right, yes, I've done my 6 hours this week, I'm just going to go and sit and drink in the park. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I did psychology. I was one of those, I'm afraid.
Oh, there you go. Weirdly, looking back, I wish I had done psychology for different reasons. Anyway, no, that's wonderful. I love that. But if you are listening to this podcast as well, my very first podcast interviewee was a wonderful guy called Niall Henry, so also from Manchester, also on the tech scene, and he goes into schools helping kids get involved in STEM technology, but teaching them how to build electric go-karts and then race them. Yeah. And he was saying as well that he said that once the girls got behind what they were trying to do, they were way more interested in it than the boys, especially at an early age, which I just thought was brilliant, especially as a big go-karting fan myself. So
brilliant.
I love that. So back onto business. I wanted to talk to you about marketing, because a lot of people that I speak to find marketing incredibly overwhelming and stressful, and a lot of budget goes back into product development and R&D, and then there's nothing left over for marketing. So what was your approach when you first started to marketing, and how is that different now, if it is different at all?
Yeah, so the very first approach was me having absolutely no idea, not having a marketing or sales background at all, printing things out on A4 and stapling them on our bed. So that was sticking them in some shiny brochure that we'd sort of file that we'd had created. I thought I was being really clever, because I kind of knew that our marketing would have to change over time, and I didn't want to use up like to sort of get the pamphlets or the booklets printed. I was like, that might be wasted if we don't give many away. So we got like a folder printed, and then I could change the inserts. So I thought I was really clever at that stage by doing that. So I mean, luckily, Chris, like I said, my husband, his background was websites, search engine optimization, even though it wasn't called search engine optimization back in those days. It was just get to the top of the search engine. But that was his expertise, so that worked very well for us straight away. The rest of the marketing, I can remember we went to our first exhibition and we didn't have a clue what we were doing. And about 2 weeks before, somebody said to us, so have you got some sort of board or some kind of banner? And we're like, what? Because we can't just sit at the table, people come up and ask you where the toilets are. You've got to have some kind of background. We're like, oh my god. So we quickly designed something, and honestly it was, I don't know if you remember, sort of library displays. We had Velcro.
Oh, love it.
We stuck it to the backboards and the surrounding boards of the shell of the, because we'd never even been to one, and we had no idea what to. And I can remember somebody coming along with this fancy pull-up banner, and I was like, one day I'm gonna have one of those banners. I'll have made it when I've got one of those pull-up banners. So yeah, it's been a long journey, and actually one of the first sort of major hires we probably did was to hire somebody with a marketing background, so he was probably the first person that we recruited that had a specialist apart from the developers, obviously, but Chris was a developer as well and things like that. He was the first person that we went out for a specific part of the business marketing that we knew we had a huge gap for. But we knew we had to make that investment because Chris and I had absolutely no idea, basically. So we actually invested quite, that was probably the first sort of investment that we kind of had to think really seriously about. This is, and we didn't know if it would, but yeah, definitely we invest heavily in marketing and our brand and how we come across to people, and it's really important that people get the vibe from us that we want to give, that we are the people that we are. We want to have people in the sector understanding sort of our culture and the way that we want to be. And when we get called the sort of friendly northerners as well, people ring up and go, oh, you're the friendly northerners.
The friendly northerners, I love it.
Which is great because I love having that vibe. I like, there's far worse things to be called than the friendly northerners. So yeah, and we, on the website we have an area called Explore where we have thought leadership articles. So it's great, our background, one of our USP is our expertise in the sector. We're not a bunch of techies that have just developed a solution. We're experts in the apprenticeship sector, and our salespeople, our customer success managers, they all come from that sector. So we want to show that we do understand, we have that empathy with our customers because we have actually been there. We've done their jobs and we understand the pains that they're going through. So it's marketing is, you do have to invest in it and it was quite interesting when we were back at the incubator right at the beginning. There was a company on our floor who were talking about Silicon Valley, and it was wow, Silicon Valley, they were talking about having potential customers there, and I was like, wow, they're going to be huge. And actually they didn't make it. They sort of folded, and it was because there were a room full of techies. And we were talking about, going back to the first conversation, there were a room full of techies, incredibly intelligent. I couldn't really even understand what they did, but they didn't have anybody out there that could market them. So you could have the best product in the world or the best service in the world, but unless anyone knows about it, there's no point.
Yeah. So for everybody listening to that, very wise words. You have to market your business if you want people to come to you. One of my previous guests, he was like, well, somebody told me once that if you build it, they will come. And he's like, that was like my biggest learning when I first started my tech business, because they don't come. You have to go to them.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love I love that. I realize that I keep saying, oh, I love that, which is something I definitely need to kick. I don't know where it's even come from. Crikey. So of all of the different ways that you've marketed over the years, which have been your kind of like most sort of successful means of marketing?
Oh, goodness. I've got some stats.
I love it. Stats. Don't need to have stats. Could just go with intuition. Which do you think?
I definitely our Explore area of the website. But obviously that takes dedicated time to write articles and to gather research and to understand what people are talking about in the sector. So that is a big investment. Obviously, if you have a lot of competitors, you need to be at the top of the sites. At the end of the day, you've got to be at the top of the search engines, and nobody gets to page 2. No one even gets halfway down page 1, let's face it. So and it was quite interesting, actually. I had a meeting with the Times Education supplement editor for the further education sector, and he complimented me, basically goes, when I type in anything to do with apprenticeships, OneFile comes up and that you're higher than us. So I was like, well, I'll take that if we're higher than the Times in the search engines for certain sectors. So I was really pleased with that. And then obviously networking, get to know people in your sector. And then I think for me as well, obviously it was the, I think getting known in your sector and in the networks, and just like, I think you put a shout out for somebody to say, oh, is there anybody I should speak to, and somebody recommended my name. I mean, that's just brilliant. I can't buy that kind of recommendation, really. That's just, you've just got to put yourself out there. There's no other way. I mean, I suppose I could have paid us to say my name. that would have taken time. So you've just got to get yourself out there. Like, you build it and they won't just come. That's absolutely right. You've got to shout loud and proud. And something else that the Goldman Sachs program said as well, you know, when you do good in your business, if you do have CSR, if you do go out into the community, you do, you know, whatever kind of work that you do, a charitable arm, shout about it. You know, people want to do business with people that do nice things, because inherently people are on the whole nice. And we want to do business with a company that you think, and so they did say, you know, they asked at the time who does sort of some kind of CSR or who's won an award and what you've done about it. And later people don't tell anyone. Oh, it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? It's a bit, and yeah, it is, you know. But you've just got to, you've got to shout about it. And it's nice because you do get nice feedback back as well, and that is nice to hear. I mean, just this week, I again, I have absolutely no idea how, but I was listed on the top 32 women entrepreneurs to watch in the UK by Business Leader magazine. Someone tagged me into it. I had no idea. I was like reading it, go, what? How am I on there? And I've said about it on social media, which has been amazing, and it's been absolutely lovely. I've had so many wonderful positive comments. It's been a real boost this week, you know, real tonic after, you know, being in lockdown for 3 months. And I wasn't going to tell my team. I wasn't going to tell the staff. It's a bit embarrassing. It's a bit cringe, I think. And then 2 of the staff who'd seen it, I was like, are you going to tell everyone? I was like, oh, I don't know. No, I'll tell it on social media. That's fine. But I'm not going to tell everyone. I've not even told my friends. So anyway, I do an end of week roundup during lockdown. So on a Friday, and I've just written it before I came onto the podcast, and I've written it. I've written it in the podcast. I've written it in the end of it. I said, oh, I wasn't going to tell you, but I've been told by a couple of people I've got to. So,
yeah, because it's an incredible achievement. You should definitely say
it is. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. But yeah, I suppose it's just that sort of British thing in us, isn't it?
I was going to say, I think it is a British thing, because I did. I was on a marketing accelerator run by somebody over in the States for a couple of years, and the distinct difference between the Brits in the room and the Americans. You know, it's like, oh, well, I'm not sure if I can talk about that because it's not quite good enough yet. Or, you know, like, oh, you know, only one of the top 30 entrepreneurs, but, you know, like, it's, you know, oh, but it's an incredible achievement. So yes, I know that I used to struggle with that a lot, so I'm getting a lot better at it, but I think it is very much a British thing. I don't even know where it came from. It's
no, exactly, but I think we grow out of it as well, because I did a talk a while ago at an awards ceremony, and I was talking about my daughter. So my daughter's 6 now, but I think she must have been 4 at the time, or 5 at the time. And I'd said to her, oh, you know, that's a really good drawing. And she looked at me and went, I know. You know, I'd have been like, oh, I don't like the way they've done the face, I don't like the way I've coloured it in or shaded it. She was like, yeah, I know. Yeah. And I say to her, oh, you look nice today. She goes, yeah, I know. Yeah, I picked these. Yeah, great. And I just think, when do we lose that? You know, when do we lose, you know, is it sort of like shaken out of us at school, or, you know, you shouldn't be too, because obviously you don't want to be too, yeah, I know, I'm great. There's got to be like a happy medium, hasn't there? But I think sometimes we go too far the other way. Like I said, I haven't even told my friends. So I just think, oh. Yeah,
I went to an old girls' school, so for me, I'd be like, it's when I went to that school.
There you go.
It probably would have been different now, but yeah, no, horrible experience. But that's the whole story for another day. But yeah, no, definitely scream and shout about that. That's amazing. So I feel very honoured that you've shared that information with me here today.
You're very welcome.
So that's brilliant. And I did want to ask as well, like, so what's the difference between you sort of putting yourself out there as a founder of a sort of successful tech company versus focusing more on the branding of the tech company?
Oh, it's a lot easier. Yeah, it's a lot easier focusing on the business. And, you know, when OneFile wins awards, yeah, I'll brag about it. I'll tell anybody who'll listen. I'll tell someone passing on the street. They'll stop and listen to me. It's just different because, you know, I'm only as good an entrepreneur or business because of the team behind me, but obviously when it's your name, that it feels more individual. But where it's the business that's winning something, then, you know, I feel like I'm able to share that more with the business, you know, like this is all of us. But even though when I get named or I win something personally, I still couldn't do it without the team. I wouldn't be where I am now without the team. But yeah, it's always, and I say it all the time to my market, it's always a lot easier sort of bragging about what OneFile's done and what OneFile's won. I don't like really talking about when it's me. And, you know, sometimes we'll do it. we'll say that you've done it and you can just share it. Okay, you do that. But it's just a lot easier to talk about it because the business is my baby. You know, I've got 2 kids, but they always talk about OneFile being our firstborn, and we've actually got 3 kids. And you always want to talk about your kids and how great your kids are and how beautiful your kids are, don't you? So
You do with business as well, but then when you speak to, I think that's one thing I've struggled with since I became a mum, is that, you know, all of my friends don't really have their own businesses, so they want to talk about the baby, and I'm just like, oh, but my business has done something really cool.
yeah,
Like, so, you know, the baby's still a baby, he's not doing that much at the moment, so
well, absolutely. And the thing is, it's like when you have a business and you have friends that don't have business, it's like having a baby and you're talking to a friend who doesn't have a baby. They have no idea how tired you are. They have no idea what you are feeling and what you are going through, and, you know, everything else that goes with being a sort of a new mom and all of that stuff. So, and it's exactly the same. I can remember right at the beginning when I was like, I'd find myself talking about the business all the time in front of my friends, and then I could just see them glaze over. You know, but to me it was like it was just like I'd had a baby, and I just wanted to talk to people about how many times it had pooed and how many hours it slept at night, what colour its poo was, and, you know, the gory details of it all. And that's why now I have my business owner founder friends that I can just splurge to, or I can just message and go, oh my god, this has happened today, I can't believe it, good or bad, and they just go, oh yeah, completely get it, completely 100% get it.
yeah, it's so important to have those peers and those people that do understand what you're going through as well, because it is hard. It's, you know, long hours, and there's a lot of stresses and things like that that nobody talks about.
No, there's big sacrifices when you run your own business. You know, people say to me, oh, you're so lucky you run your own business, or, you know, I bet you get as much leave as you want. I go, god, I wish. You know, I mean, definitely the first few, you know, goodness, I don't even know, 10 years, I hardly, you know, I didn't take leave unless we were going away on holiday somewhere. Do you know what I mean? It just didn't happen. So you know, and people sort of say, oh, you're so lucky. And I go, well, you know, during our honeymoons, we launched the year that we actually got married. And during our honeymoon, we went to Paris, Rome, and Venice. And we worked every single day for about 3 or 4 hours a day. And I said, I don't really know anybody else that worked in the Maldives on their honeymoon or whatever they did. You know, that was their time. But we had to do that because we had this, it would be like having a baby. You know, you've still got to feed it. You've still got to breathe life into it. It's still got to be nurtured. And just because we're going away for 2 weeks for our honeymoon, we can't just leave it. It's just something that had to be done. And again, the first time that I thought we'd taken on a couple of members of staff, and we thought we had a holiday coming up, and I thought, oh goodness, you know, this is going to be the first proper holiday actually, because it was somebody that was doing really well, and unfortunately got taken poorly just before we went on holiday, and we had to work sort of all morning, every morning of the holiday till about 1 PM. And I was like, I can't, you know, but again, that's the sacrifices you have to make.
Yeah, definitely. And just on the subject of hiring and taking staff on, are there any sort of words of wisdom that you can share with our listeners that may be at the point where they're either taking on their first hire or they're looking at sort of hiring more people?
I think you've got to make a conscious decision, especially when you're hiring sort of your first sort of batch of the team. Are you hiring somebody to take some of the workload off you? So it could be admin work, it could be, you know, whatever that might look like for you, or if you're a developer, do you want another developer in? Or are you looking for somebody who's got skills that you don't have, who's going to take you, maybe improve like the marketing or whatever that might be, or somebody in sales? And I think you have to make that decision. We first of all just started hiring people to take some of the workload off us. And then after a few years, we realized actually we've got to find people that are better than us in areas that we're weak. And that is a big turning point in the business, actually. And, you know, and sometimes as well, you promote people within, and that's great. And everybody does it. You know, people have been there a long time, they get promoted. They've been there a long time, they get promoted. But as you grow, the people that started the business with you aren't necessarily the people that are going to take you to the next stage. So as you go from 0 to a couple of 100,000, as you go from a couple of 100,000 to 1 million, and, you know, up, the people that are along the journey aren't always going to be the people that want to continue on the way. So, you know, we had people right at the beginning, I'd be sat on a desk with them, you know, chatting to them every day. And some of them are still with the business, but I might not see them every day, you know, because they're in another part of the office. I'm out 4 days a week, and I might not bump into them on the day that I'm back in the office. So And for some people that's okay, but then other people, they like that. Oh, I've sat with the founder and da, da, da. So for them it might be a change as well. And as you ramp up and you have to become again more of a grown-up business, you have to put your processes in. At the beginning it's just haphazard, and let's face it, it's just a trial and error. But as you have to put the processes and procedures in, as you get your ISO certifications and things like that, and you have to do things properly, things have to change. And some of the people that have been with you will choose to say, it's I'm not enjoying this anymore for whatever reason, and I need to go and find another business that's smaller and not growing so fast. And then sometimes you do have to make a difficult decision that the person in the business isn't the right person anymore, and you have to have that difficult conversation with them as well. And it's it's incredibly tricky. I think the people side of it is the hardest part to get right. And also you need to recruit on skills but also behaviors. You can have the best salesperson, you can have the best developer, you can have the best whatever in your business, but if their behaviors aren't right, it'll be poison to your business. Absolute poison, and it spreads like wildfire. And the most positive people in your business can become trodden down by somebody else's negativity and poison. And again, you need to move quickly when there's people like that.
Oh, that's great advice, and I hope that a lot of people listening will take on board that advice, because I think it's one of those that you well, I don't know, speaking for myself, like you learn through experience and making those mistakes, and then realizing, hang on a minute, I need to not do that again. So thank you for sharing that. That's really, really helpful. So I'm aware that I'm taking lots of your time here, but you're already doing some absolutely wonderful things. Have grown so much over the last few years. What's next for OneFile?
So we've got some new products being launched this year. So we're in the apprenticeship space, so it's other products that are complementary to the products that we already have to support people on their journey. So it makes our customers more efficient, it makes them more robust, more easily auditable, etc., etc. So that's really, really exciting. And then it's what's the next horizon? That's what we're thinking of now. What's the next horizon? Where are we going after that? So are we staying in the apprenticeship market? I mean, we will stay in the apprenticeship market, we absolutely adore it, but what is next? Where else can we take OneFile? Is there new markets? We have some business over in the States, which is really exciting, and we have some business in different parts of the world. So we want to sort of internationalize. I'm just there's too many shiny things, and that's why the board is so great, because they rein me in and say, let's concentrate on one at a time, because I'd go for them all if I could. So we're just working through, and obviously with the situation as it is with COVID, what are the opportunities as we come out of post-COVID? How are people going to be working in the future? So many people would never have done video conferencing. They would have turned the cameras off. I mean, I would have been the ones, I can't put my camera on. And now it's just second nature. It's had to be, because we've had to. So how is education, how is vocational training going to change in the future? How is, learning and development in organisations going to change in the future? So that's sort of what we're concentrating on at the moment.
Oh, brilliant. I can't wait to see more about what it is that you're up to. I have a quick question before we move on, is that, you talked about your board a couple of times. At what point did you get the board together for the business?
So we've had sort of internal people on the board. But so it's been in the last 2 years, actually. So we were probably sort of quite late. We acted as a board, but it was all sort of people within the business. I mean, the board members that we've got now, they still work part-time, sort of in the business, the odd day. Or, they come in and support the business. But what I've also found with recruitment as well is when you want real specialism and real expertise. So our FD, for example, is ex-Barclays IT finance director. Now, I couldn't afford him full-time, but actually he can come in a couple of days a week. And I can afford him for a couple of days a week. And, it's revolutionized what we've been able to do. So if you need expertise in your business or a board, you don't have to take them on full time. Can you afford? Because also what's great is he's got a portfolio career now where he works in several other businesses. So he's bringing expertise he's learning in other businesses back to ours as well. So that's fantastic. So yeah, it is good having it's weird because when you work in the business as well and you're an executive board member, it's different. And then obviously I'm a shareholder as well, so that's different again. You've kind of got three hats. You've got your shareholder hat, you've got your employee hat, and you've got your board hat, your director hat, and you've got different responsibilities in all three of those. And I'm doing my Institute of Directors exams, and there's so many people that are directors of businesses and on boards that do not have a clue what their responsibilities are. They do not know that they could go to prison if there's a health and safety breach in the business. And they do not know that they could be financially, personally liable. They think, oh, we've got limited company. No, if there's a health and safety breach or something goes wrong like that, you can be personally liable for your own house, your own money. So, I think as you're taking on board members and somebody's becoming a director of their own business, it is something that it's a serious thing becoming a director. And people do have to understand what their responsibilities are. And it's quite scary that so many people out there don't. But sorry, going back to your question, yes. No,
I mean, to be honest, this is all really valuable information, because I know that before I set up my own business, I went on a director development program, and my eyes were definitely opened at that point, because I think, especially when you're in one way like young and green and you're just growing in the company, and you look at that title of director and you just think, that's what I'm working towards, but then you don't necessarily you don't consider all of the risks and the other things that are involved. It's that, like, you hope it will never happen to you, but you always need to know, right, okay, if it did, what do I do?
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you were going to answer my original question.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, yeah.
But that's really valuable.
Not really the last few years. I mean, we've talked about having a board, but it's really the last few years we've got external people to work with the business on the board. Yeah, we've been quite late to the game. We've always tried to function as a board, even with the executive board members. We do it right, but it's great. It's fantastic. It's a different kettle of fish when you can bring somebody external to the business in, who has got that external point of view and that external experience of the outside world. Because I think, when you've been working in your own business for 10, 15 years, it's very difficult to get that point of view and that expertise. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. That's really, really useful, especially for lots of people in different stages of business as well can take that on board. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be in business for as long as you have to get a board together and to.
Yeah, but I also think as well, if you take investments, obviously the private equity firm will put a member, somebody in your board. So if you're taking that right at the beginning, that's another benefit to taking investments, that you would have that external expertise of somebody that's got, know-how and knowledge of how to build a business straight away. So, there is definitely benefits from that.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, I'm not going to take up a huge amount more of your time, but if anybody wants to find out more about OneFile or get in touch with you or keep in contact, what's the best way of doing that?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Susanna, so Susanna OneFile ONEFILE, so at Susanna OneFile. You can find me on LinkedIn, Susanna Lawson. So I'm all over social media. You can find me on there.
I know, because that's how we met. We met on Twitter. I love Twitter. So thank you very much. All of the show notes will be available on my website if you want to have a read, and also get the links to contact Susanna. So thank you so much. It's been absolutely brilliant. I could talk to you for ages about all sorts of different things, and I really do wish you all the best for the future.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Charlie. I've loved it. That's been great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.